Hey, everybody. I am back. Wow. It's been a wild time. So we're going to have yet another one of our late night streams. I'm going to catch you all up about a lot of things that have happened. Give my reaction to a lot of the news that has taken place in the last few days. It's been a lot happening, but a lot of it good. A lot of it good. A lot of it mixed. Some of it not so good. But it's been an interesting few days. So yeah, let's do it.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. The way we do these streams is the same way we always do them, which is that I give my opening remarks, which are then followed by a roll call where I call you all out as I see you, names and locations. And then from there, I answer your super chat or Rumble rant questions for the remainder of our show. That is the way we do it. So if you've got something you would like me to address in the second half of the program, send me a super chat or a Rumble rant, and I will do my best to answer your question. I will say that part of the reason I haven't been streaming as much is because you guys don't ask me questions, and I would have much more of an incentive to stream if you guys were asking me more questions, but hey, I'm going to keep streaming because I enjoy it. And that's what I did say a couple months ago. I said, I'm going to stream when I have something to say, when I feel like it. And I do have something to say, but I'll tell you, I really enjoy it when people ask me good questions, when people send a lot of super chats and all that. It gets me talking. So super chats, Rumble rants on the Rumble. That's what keeps me going. So please send those in. Always appreciated. We just had a big day of activities in Washington, D.C., which I will share with you all about. Obviously I'll be focusing on current events, but I'll share with you about some of it. And there's plenty to talk about. But we're always doing something in CPI. We always have a new initiative, a new project. We're trying to change society, and that came across beautifully, absolutely beautifully at our recent event and with the people who came to town, and it was great. It was really, really great. So, do we ever quit while we're ahead? No. And that's why we're headed to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that will be February 22nd. We are headed to Minneapolis. It's going to be good. I'll be there. Peter Coffin will be there. Penny Arcos will be there. A lot of local Minneapolis CPI organizers will be there. We're going to have a all-day workshop in Minneapolis, which is in Minnesota. It'll be the what do you call that region, right? What do you call that area, right? Up by Michigan and Wisconsin, and what do you call that? The northern United States, the Northeast, is that what you call it? But Northeast, is it the Northeast? I guess that's what you call it. We'll be in that area. We will be there, and it's going to be good. So if you'd like to come to our event that we're having in Minneapolis, all you need to do is register. It's not. You have to register. We don't post the location. It is it's an event you have to register for. It's at a house. We have like an all-day event with speeches and music and stuff like that. So if you'd like to come, just go ahead and register. I'm dropping the link in the chat. It should be a great day of education, music, getting to know you kind of activities, the upper Midwest. It's going to be fun. So if you'd like to join us in Minnesota on February 22nd, it'll be good food, good music, etc. Please register and join us. It's going to be good. It's going to be absolutely good. And I will update you all about the event that we did, and how it went. We've got different things to share, and there's more video and all kinds of things are happening, and I'll share that with all of you. The way we do these live streams, first the opening remarks, then the roll call, then I answer your super chat or Rumble rant questions for the remainder of the show. Please send super chats and Rumble rants because they make my life easier and they give me more to talk about. Please do. All right. So Donald Trump has taken office. He is the president of the United States once again. What has happened? Well, the world has burst into flames. We've all been rounded up and put in concentration camps. Nazism is being reinstituted, and there's about to be, come on. No, actually, a lot of good things seem to be in the works. There are some not so good things in the works. There are some so-so things in the works. But overall, first of all, TikTok was about to be outlawed. And then Donald Trump saved it. And CNN actually said there was nothing that Donald Trump could do to save TikTok when he takes office. Nothing he can do. But yet, not only did Donald Trump save TikTok, he saved TikTok before he even took the oath. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has been unable to bring about a ceasefire in Gaza. And apparently the deal, the terms of which were on the table since May, was just pushed forward. There is now a ceasefire in Gaza. Hamas is celebrating victory. And the Palestinian resistance considers itself to be victorious. Israel has withdrawn for the moment. They say it is only a temporary ceasefire. But this is something that the Biden administration never had the strength to push through. And the ceasefire happened. This is very, very exciting. Loads of executive orders have been signed. A number of people have been pardoned. People that were, arrested in the January 6th protests have been pardoned. All kinds of people who've been wrongfully prosecuted politically have been pardoned by the incoming administration. Donald Trump announced that he's going to release the files on the Martin Luther King Jr., John F. Kennedy, and Robert F. Kennedy assassinations. He's going to make those files public. He signed an executive order today making those files public. All of that is very, very good. Very, very, very good. It seems that Donald Trump is coming into office, understanding that a very big section of the mainstream media and a very big section of the intelligence agencies, the FBI and the CIA and other intelligence agencies, are against him. And because of that, they are ready. He's ready to rumble. He's ready to fight. He's ready to push back. And he's got Kash Patel set to become the FBI director. There's talk that FBI agents might be quitting in droves because they're just so upset about Kash Patel being named as the FBI director. Great. In addition to that, it appears that Tulsi Gabbard is set to become Trump's director of intelligence. Now, Tulsi Gabbard is set to have the confirmation hearings for her as the intelligence director, set to take place on, they'll be starting next Friday, a week from tomorrow. She will begin her confirmation hearings on Capitol Hill. And it's going to be very, very important that we support Tulsi Gabbard and make clear that we would like her to be the intelligence director, as she is an opponent of regime change wars around the world. A lot of exciting things are happening. The war in Gaza has been halted. In addition to that, TikTok has been restored. In addition to that, it looks like now we are understanding Donald Trump said he wants to end the war in Ukraine. Now, he hasn't done it as quickly as he thought he'd be able to. He was convinced he could end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. As was pointed out by many people, that's not really realistic, but he still wants to end it. We did hear from Donald Trump speaking to the World Economic Forum in Davos, and this is some of what he said. Here's one clip.
Mr. President, when you're back here in Davos next year, will there be then a peace agreement with Ukraine and Russia by then?
Well, you're going to have to ask Russia. Ukraine is ready to make a deal. Just so you understand, this is a war that should have never started. If I were president, it would never have started. This is a war that should have never, ever been started. And it wasn't started during there was never even talk about it. I knew that it was the apple of President Putin's eye, but I also knew that there was no way he was going in, and he wasn't going to go in. And then when I was out, bad things happened, bad things were said, a lot of stupidity all around, and you end up with what you have. Now you have all these bombed out cities. They look like demolition sites with many people killed. I think the thing that you'll see about Ukraine is that far more people have died than is being reported.
Yeah. And so he says Ukraine is ready to negotiate. And, he has said that they would like to resolve this conflict. They'd like to make a deal to end the conflict in Ukraine. That is very, very exciting and very, very important. I do think that Donald Trump is going to want a photo op out of this. He's going to want to be in the same room as Russian President Putin, perhaps have Zelensky in the same room. Donald Trump is going to want a historic photo op. That's how he is. I think there's a very good chance that the war could end soon. What is important is that those of us who do want this war to end, we need to be prepared to show public support for the war ending as much as we possibly can. We need to very, very loudly show public support for the peace deal. When the peace deal is on the table, we need to loudly support it because it's going to be condemned from all around. We know that the neoconservative establishment wants to keep this war going on indefinitely. They see it as an opportunity to bleed Russia economically, to demoralize Russia, to demoralize the country. They just want to keep this going as long as they possibly can. They're following the Brzezinski playbook about the Afghan trap, and they just want to keep this going as long as they possibly can. It seems that Donald Trump wants to make a deal to end the conflict. We need to be prepared to loudly support such a deal that would end the conflict. That's what we have to do. And if we're not prepared to do that, we can't at that point say that we are serious in wanting peace. If we just sit back and condemn, we're very foolish. We need to loudly show support for the peace deal. We need to prepare to support Tulsi Gabbard. We need to prepare to support the peace deal. We need to prepare to boost the factions within the ruling class that want to act in a way that would be in the interest of anti-imperialism. And because we have this responsibility and because we've taken that on, that's going to require us to do something about it. So that is on my mind. There was something else Donald Trump said that was interesting. He wants to reduce the amount of nuclear weapons in the world. This is what he said.
To see denuclearization. In fact, with President Putin prior to an election result, which was frankly ridiculous, we were talking about denuclearization of our two countries, and China would have come along. China has a much smaller right now nuclear armament than us, or field than us, but they're going to be catching it at some point over the next 4 or 5 years. And I will tell you that President Putin really liked the idea of cutting way back on nuclear. And I think the rest of the world, we would have gotten them to follow. and China would have come along too. China also liked it. Tremendous amounts of money are being spent on nuclear, and the destructive capability is something that we don't even want to talk about today.
Now, that's interesting also. So not only is he saying he wants to reduce the amount of nuclear weapons in the world, but it's also important to note that Donald Trump, it's interesting because we all assumed that Donald Trump might be ready to ease up when it comes to Russia, but that he would be more and more anti-China. That was the assumption. And that was certainly the rhetoric that we heard from Donald Trump. More anti-China, less anti-Russia. That's not what we're seeing so far. I mean, he's only been in office a couple days. But what we saw is that, first of all, one of the main anti-China talking points was TikTok. TikTok is propaganda. TikTok is somehow controlled by China and brainwashing everyone. Well, Donald Trump brought back TikTok. That was not in line with the anti-China obsession. Second, in addition to that, Donald Trump he invited Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, to come to his inauguration. Now, he didn't attend, but the vice president of China attended his inauguration. And it appears that Donald Trump is saying that he wants to make some kind of trade deal with China that would bring investment into the United States from Chinese companies. Now, that, I think, is actually a very, very good idea. Right? Say that in exchange for something related to imports, exports, that they want China to have more economic involvement in the United States. The more the United States can pivot into an alliance, into the new economy that is arising around the world, into the BRICS countries, the better. So if Donald Trump makes some kind of deal with China that requires and mandates that China invest in the United States, bring jobs to the United States, and have the U.S. economy be more tied in with China's economy, that's a very, very good thing. And that's certainly not what we're told, and what Donald Trump was emphasizing. It was almost like he wanted to put up a protectionist wall to keep China out. Now he's saying he wants China to, open car factories in America. And this is all very, very exciting as well. And I think we're potentially entering an era of détente, de-escalation of the conflict. And that's very, very good. That's very, 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 very good. And it's very, very exciting. I'm quite pumped about it. The idea that the U.S. economy could become less intertwined with the British Empire, less intertwined with Wall Street, etc., and more intertwined with Russia and the Eurasian Economic Union and the Belt and Road and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That's very, very exciting. One of the main themes of our outreach on Inauguration Day, which we'll be talking about here in a minute, we called for the construction of a bridge connecting the United States to Russia via Alaska, a bridge over the Bering Sea. That was a big point that we made in our outreach to Trump supporters at the inauguration. And pivoting the U.S. economy eastward is essential because the NATO system is dying. The Western financial system is collapsing, and pivoting eastward is really the best hope we have, right? You're not going to change overnight the entire U.S. political system. However, if we can pivot away from Wall Street, pivot away from London, pivot toward the Belt and Road, pivot eastward, that's going to lead us toward more peace. That's going to lead us toward more economic development. That's going to lead us away from degrowth and Malthusianism and constant war. The more we can move eastward, the better, the better. So this is another comment that was made by Trump. This was from the Oval Office.
Again, that NATO countries should spend 5% of GDP on defense.
Yeah.
The United States don't spend 5%.
Well,
Do you
I
think it
don't
should also
think so.
apply to the United States?
We're protecting them, They're not protecting us, we're protecting them. So I don't think we should be spending, I'm not sure we should be spending anything, but we should certainly be helping them. But they should up their 2% to 5%, yeah.
Mr. President, you said...
Yeah, make the NATO countries pay more. And again, stop the role of the United States being to kind of maintain and militarily defend the Western financial system. This is all very, very good. This is all very, very good. So we're seeing some things that are good. Now, obviously, there have been a few other things that have happened that I wanted to talk about. One of them is something that I think is pretty good, which is that Donald Trump has stripped the security clearances from all the intelligence officials who claimed that the Hunter Biden laptop's top story was Russian propaganda. That's big. That's a total slap in the face to a lot of top intelligence officials. One of them is John Brennan. Now, John Brennan was Obama's CIA director. John Brennan had long been stationed in Saudi Arabia and been the director of the CIA operations in Saudi Arabia. It's alleged that he converted to Islam. John Brennan voted for the Communist Party in 1976. He voted for Gus Hall. And John Brennan was the guy who oversaw policies of arming the Muslim Brotherhood and arming Wahhabi extremists against Gaddafi in Libya and against the Syrian government, getting the Syrian war going. John Brennan, an Irish American, was very much a liberal CIA guy who had a particular crush on radical Muslims and using them to carry out U.S. foreign policy goals. He was from that Brzezinski school, utilizing radical Muslims as proxies of the United States to fight wars around the world. That was kind of his policy. He's now stripped of security clearances because he lied. I mean, he lied. The Hunter Biden laptop story was true. Hunter Biden's laptop was full of scandalous material. It was actually true, but because they wanted to remove Trump back in 2020, they didn't want him to serve another term. They lied, and the FBI went around and suppressed the story. That and so did the CIA and other intelligence officials, and they've been stripped of their security clearances. That's a very good sign. A very good sign. Mike Pompeo, who was probably the worst influence on Donald Trump during his first term, Mike Pompeo, largely responsible for pushing Donald Trump to murder Qasem Soleimani, largely responsible for pushing the USA to be a blind supporter of Israel, for pushing anti-Venezuela policies along with John Bolton. Mike Pompeo, not only will he not be serving in the Trump administration, but he has been stripped of his security clearances. This is a good thing. This is a very, very good move. John Brennan and Mike Pompeo, two bad guys, two globalists, two neocons, two war hawks. They're stripped of their security clearances, along with a number of others. That's all a good, very good sign. What else? Well, it appears that Donald Trump wants to reopen the Iran nuclear deal. So apparently the very same official from the Trump administration that negotiated the ceasefire in Gaza with Hamas is now going to start negotiating the Iran nuclear deal. Once again, they want to reopen the Iran nuclear deal. You remember Donald Trump ripped up the Iran nuclear deal. He murdered Qasem Soleimani. But now Donald Trump is making gestures toward Iran. Donald Trump's inauguration had a Shia imam from Detroit, Michigan, from Dearborn, Michigan, give the speech, give the benediction and the call to prayer. That was unheard of. When has that ever happened? To have a Muslim imam doing that? And so Donald Trump is actually making noise like he wants to get the United States friendlier to Iran. Meanwhile, he forced Netanyahu to do something that was never done by the Biden administration. Biden never had the courage to twist the arm of Netanyahu the way Trump did. This is all very, very, very exciting. It's all very, very, very exciting. So I wanted to share that with all of you. I am disappointed by a few things that are happening that I will share with you, both of which really don't fucking matter. and this is the thing, we need to get past the manufactured theatrical politics. There are two things that happened that don't matter, that do not matter. And I really would like to talk about these stories because everyone's talking about them. They're the focus of mainstream media, and they don't fucking matter. They just don't matter. And the first one is, did Elon Musk make a Hitler salute at Trump's victory rally? Did tech billionaire Elon Musk make a Nazi salute at that rally? Well, you know what, folks? I am actually going to tell you that I think he did. And I think he did it exactly to get the reaction that he's getting. And this is the sad state of American politics. He didn't do it because he's a Nazi. He's a huge supporter of Israel. He's a tech bro libertarian. Maybe he's a little racist, whatever. But Elon Musk, he didn't do it because he's a Nazi. He did it because he knew that that's what everyone would talk about for weeks and weeks on end. That's why he did it. There's nobody in the Trump camp who's going to stop supporting Trump or stop supporting Elon Musk because he made a gesture like that. Why? Because they've been calling them Nazis nonstop for years. Anyone who supports Trump, Nazi, 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 Nazi. Oh, if you're a leftist and you stray from the woke script, Nazi, 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 Nazi. It's lost its effect. So he did that because he knew that all the people who already hate Trump and already think Trump is a Nazi would talk about it nonstop. And he also knew that nobody in the Trump camp is going to go, oh, he did that, and change their mind. And it was just a non-issue. And it's a sad state of affairs when a Nazi salute is a non-issue, but it is. And that cheapens the millions of deaths in the Holocaust, right? I mean, the millions of people who died in the Holocaust is not a non-issue. And World War II, not a non-issue, but we're at the point in the West where that gets invoked so many fucking times. It gets brought up in every debate. Everyone you don't like is a Nazi. That in order to, distract everybody and get everyone talking on the internet, Elon Musk, through a hand gesture, he did it in a way that gave himself a bit of deniability, but I think he intentionally did it because he wanted AOC and all of them to just talk and talk and talk about that nonstop. And they did. They did. Predictably, they absolutely did. They did. And I don't think he did it because he's a Nazi. I did it because it was bait. And the stupid left is now talking about that. Trump is not a Nazi. Elon Musk is not a Nazi. And it's social media bait. That's all it is. It's social media bait. And it's stupid. And it's not going to change anything. And, that is what the left focuses on. They're not focusing on policies that they would like to change. They're not focusing on that. They're focusing on who made what gesture. And it's stupid. It's really, really stupid. It's really, really stupid. But I mean, it was actually very smart on Elon Musk's part to do that because he knew that rather than debating any of the Trump administration's policies and rather than engaging in anything, everyone would talk about that. And he did it in a way that gave himself deniability. And the left did exactly what he wanted them to do. And AOC was just, oh, I'm so opposed to it. I am not okay with that. And it's really, really stupid. And I'm not happy that this is the place that we're in politically. But I also don't think it's a big deal that he did that. And it should be a big deal that he did it. But that's not the political atmosphere that we're in. And that is the fault of the left. Look, I got to tell you, my eyes were opened when 2015, 2016, which is almost 10 years ago, despite my long record of being an anti-racist activist, filming police brutality acts in Cleveland, getting young African-American women acquitted in juvenile court after they were accused. My record of anti-racism is very long, but because I work for Russian media, because I'm critical of Israel, I was labeled a Nazi, and it was nonstop. I was a Nazi, 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 Nazi. And no matter what I did, no matter what I said, no matter, no, you're a Nazi, you're a racist. And it was just a fact. And I was unwelcome in leftist spaces. I went to support the students at New School University when they were opposing, and standing up for the cafeteria workers in their union. And I was asked to leave because I read on the internet that you're supporting Richard Spencer and all this. This is the left's doing, right? They have cheapened the word Nazi. Everyone that they disagree with is a Nazi. And so now Elon Musk throws a Bellamy Roman salute because he knows that the left will all jump and immediately say what they always say. Oh, see, he's a Nazi. And that's all we'll talk about for the next few weeks. He will not lose any supporters over this. Neither will Donald Trump. The left will not say anything substantial and not challenge his policies in any way. And it's very convenient. And that's where we're at in politics. And you can thank the woke left for that. You can thank the woke left for that. I was saying the other day, and I've said this before, everybody who opposes imperialism in our time first gets labeled a Nazi and then gets labeled a sex predator. I am dead serious. It's boom, boom. If you oppose the deep state, first they call you a Nazi, then they call you a sex predator. And, I'm not a sex predator, and I'm definitely not a Nazi. And, and many people are not. And Scott Ritter is not a sex predator, and he's not a Nazi. And Max Blumenthal is not a sex predator, and he's not a Nazi. And I could go on, right? Anybody who challenges these people gets labeled that. Why? Well, look at the Azov battalion in Ukraine. Look at the genocidal crimes of Israel. And then look at P. Diddy's parties. And then look at Jeffrey Epstein's island and his airplane. The people who run the deep state, the people in the intelligence agencies, the people that are the rich and powerful ruling class of Western society, these people are Nazis and sexual predators on a level that you and I cannot even imagine. Most people cannot even imagine the level of sexual predator behavior that they engage in, and the level of genocidal murder akin to Nazism that they are comfortable with and fine with, right? If they can sit back and let Israel blow up hospitals and kill kids, if they can lie about weapons of mass destruction and have millions of Iraqis lose their lives, if they can cover up for P. Diddy for years and years and years, they can cover up for Jeffrey Epstein for years and years and years. These people are sex predators and Nazis on a level that we can only imagine. And it's not, they're not, it's not like they made a gesture, so they're Nazis. No, they're sending weapons to Israel to murder children. They're sending and arming the Azov battalion to murder people. They're arming Wahhabi death squads in Syria that slaughter Christians. They're totally fine with genocidal mass murder. And they're not just kind of sex predators. It's just like it's not a hand gesture with their Nazism. It's not like they made a hand gesture. It's not a question of abusing their authority on the job. It's not a question of did they ask somebody out and it was inappropriate, or did they, bring up inappropriate topics of conversation. No, it's minors being trafficked and abused, blackmail as a weapon of political coercion. It's on a scale. It is on a scale that we can't even imagine. And that's why they immediately put that on to us if we challenge them. Immediately, they accuse us of being Nazis. Immediately, they accuse us of being sex predators when we are neither, right? We're just questioning their policies. That's because you want to kill all the Jews. You're a mass. No, we're not. We don't want to kill any Jews. Right? We don't want to kill anybody. We just are pointing out what you're doing. Oh, you must be a sex predator. No, we're not. No, we're not. We haven't done anything on the scale of what you're doing. I mean, if there's some situation in life where you think we did something wrong, whatever, but it's not like what you guys are doing. Right. And that the fact that they go for those two allegations immediately, that's what they do. It's like boom, boom. They target anti-imperialists and they accuse them of that. Right. And they hit them with that immediately. And that's the way they operate because that's what they are. And the whole world knows that. They know the people arming Israel, the people arming the Azov battalion, the people arming the Wahhabi death squads in Syria, the people who arming the Manchester bomber that sent the Manchester bomber to Libya to fight Gaddafi, and then he turned around and blew up a concert in England. Those folks have no problem with mass murder, and they have no problem with sexual slavery of minors, all kinds of horrendous things. And so they're constantly looking to throw that allegation onto us because they assume we are like them, that we have the same kinds of motivations that they have, which is, that's what they believe, right? We generally think that other people are motivated in the same way that we are. That's generally how the human mind works. You understand other people's behavior through understanding your own behavior. And they are genocidal sex predators, genocidal, murderous sex predators. And so they assume that all of us who oppose them must be the same thing. And they desperately, dig through our lives, dig through our hand gestures, dig through our personal, private lives in order to find evidence that we're only motivated by racism and hate and genocidal, murderous impulses and sexual desires, right? And the desire to, dominate other people sexually. And that's what they project. And that's because that's who they are. That is who they are deep down. That is what they are. They are genocidal, and they are murderous. And that brings me to, and thank you, Alex, I do appreciate it. That brings me to another news item that doesn't matter, that just does not matter. Okay? It just doesn't matter. And I'm only talking about it because it's widely talked about on social media, but it also does not matter. It doesn't matter. And that's why I'm just telling you this. Donald Trump had an inaugural church service, and this woke lesbian pastor, talked about immigrants and immigrant rights to Donald Trump. And, well, so heroic, right? Oh, she stood up for those immigrant workers. Oh, she stood up for LGBT people and trans people. Oh, it's so amazing. This very same pastor has gone out of her way to make sure that her church never criticizes Israel. Look it up, right? This same pastor at the same Episcopal, very liberal church in Washington, D.C., has gone out of her way to say we will never denounce Israel, we will never oppose Israel, we'll sometimes say we feel bad for the Palestinian people, never criticized Israel. So you're trying to tell me she's so heroic. Why is she so heroic? Oh, she's so heroic because she says what CNN says. Oh, she's so heroic because, no. And do you think that wasn't planned? Do you think they let anyone just preach for the president of the United States? No, it was totally planned. It was just like Elon Musk's stupid hand gesture that was totally planned and intentional. This was also totally planned and intentional. And it was planned and intentional. And that I really do get tired of people thinking it is heroic to stand up for causes that will never get you in trouble. I really, saying that you support transgender stuff is not going to get you in trouble anywhere because that's the mainstream ideology of the ruling class. Donald Trump just had to issue an executive order so that U.S. government buildings like embassies around the world don't hang rainbow flags on them. It is the ruling ideology of the United States that we love gay people, we love homosexuality, etc. And anyone who doesn't is a bad person. That gives us the right to invade their country and overthrow their government. So her scolding Donald Trump about transgender children, her scolding Donald Trump about immigrants, not heroic. Whether you agree with her or not, right? You might agree with everything she said. I'm not here to convince you whether she's right or wrong. I'm here to convince you that nothing that she did was remotely heroic. And there was mass murder of the Palestinians going on. And she went out of her way to make sure that her church never took a stand on it. Why? Because it wasn't popular. Because it's not all over CNN. It's not the trendy thing to do. So no, there's nothing heroic about what that pastor did. Look, if you think that somehow opposing Donald Trump is a heroic deed, is somehow you're fighting the man, you're doing something great, you're delusional. The anti-Trump movement is from the highest levels of the American government. The anti-Trump movement is defending the FBI, which Donald Trump is moving against. It is defending the Pentagon. It is defending NATO. It is defending all these institutions that I'm against. Does that mean I necessarily agree with everything Donald Trump does? No, but I'd rather have somebody who opposes what I'm against than somebody who's for it. And this idea that somehow the anti-Trump movement can lead to something good, we've done this for 8 years now. We did it for the first 4 years he was in office. We did it for the 4 years that he wasn't in office. Nothing good came from the anti-Trump movement. Meanwhile, something good did come from the Trump presidency, which was moving toward improving relations on the Korean Peninsula. And something else good has already come from it, which is, at this point, a ceasefire in Gaza. And in addition to that, it looks like we're going to get the MLK, JFK, and RFK files. Good things are happening in the Trump world. Not all good things. I don't agree with the deportation raids that are happening, and I'm happy to tell you why. I've made that clear on these streams before. I don't think anti-immigrant policies are going to help the country in any way. And they're not going to address the issues that people are concerned about that rise from immigration. But overall, good things are possible with Trump. And nothing good is possible. Look, if Kamala Harris had just taken the oath, there would not be a ceasefire in Gaza. So if you are telling me I'm a bad person for pointing this out, you're basically saying you want the bombs to still be falling in Gaza right now. That's what you're saying. If Kamala Harris had just taken the oath, we wouldn't be getting the MLK files or the JFK files or the RFK files, right? I think there is a very good chance that Donald Trump may end the war in Ukraine. Not guaranteeing it, because it's going to be a long shot. And, we're getting mixed signals from him right now. There's a chance, a good one, that the war in Ukraine could come to an end. And we need to do everything we can to make that happen. So there's a chance that good things could happen under the Trump administration. Look, at the end of the day, the issue is not Trump or anti-Trump. It's imperialism, globalism. It's the economic system where big banks and corporations dominate the world and hold back development, keeping the world poor so that they can stay rich, setting up a low-wage police state, marching us toward World War III so they can hold on to power. We must oppose imperialism, and we must build an anti-monopoly coalition. That is our job. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. And that movement is not going to build itself. And there's not going to be some savior in the White House or some savior in a white horse who's going to do it for us. We have to build the movement. And the movement is not streaming on social media. Glad you're all listening, but it's not that. We need to build an actual mass movement and build an actual anti-monopoly coalition to rescue America from the emerging low-wage police state. And that's not going to be an easy job. It's going to be difficult, but we have to do it. We have no choice. We must build a movement against imperialism. And you need an organization to build such a movement. And we've got to do it. Donald Trump being there creates a layer of political space through which we can nudge anti-imperialism into the conversation, through which we can build the movement that is desperately needed. And we need to take advantage of every opportunity that we have here, because we are in very, very scary times. And that brings me to yet another news story that happened. This one scared me. And the fact that this story doesn't seem to bother certain people makes me worried. If this, imagine that, and this is actually happened. You don't have to imagine this. Imagine that in China, there was somebody who was involved in anti-China activities, who was thrown into jail. And then in the jail, they gave them a therapist who convinced them that the Chinese Communist Party was good. And then the government wanted to give them a pardon and let them out of jail. And they came forward and they said, "Don't pardon me for what I have done. I deserve to go to prison because the Chinese Communist Party is good." Now, if that happened, we would all say they're a victim of communist brainwashing. When Cardinal Mindszenty, a anti-communist Catholic priest in Hungary, was arrested by communist leaders, thrown in prison, and when he came out at his trial and gave big confessions and said he was guilty of the crimes, we all said he was brainwashed. When the Korean POWs, the American soldiers that were captured in the Korean War, when they came out and confessed to war crimes in the prisoner of war camps and turned against the American government, we said they were brainwashed. Well, we're all supposed to be really, really happy about this story. This story should scare the hell out of you. And this is what the deep state is up to right now. So this happened. Trump pardoned her for storming the Capitol. Absolutely not, she said. Pamela Hemphill, 71, of Boise, Idaho, who served 60 days in prison, said it would be an insult to the Capitol Police if she accepted a pardon. This woman is a convicted felon. She served 60 days in federal prison, and now she's been pardoned. She got a pardon from Donald Trump, and now she's saying, I don't deserve my pardon because the Capitol Police were good, and I was brainwashed by Donald Trump. I am a I turned against the government. I was part of a fascist movement. It is the creepiest shit you've ever seen. And if this happened in any other country, you would say it was brainwashing. Look at this. Look at this. She said that a therapist had helped her change her view of the attack by telling her she was not a victim of January 6th. I was a volunteer. She said she no longer supports Donald Trump and believes his lie that the 2020 election was stolen. This is called brainwashing. This is called brainwashing. Normal people don't want to have felonies on their records. Normal people generally resent it when they get thrown in prison. Normal people are not happy that they get prison time. But she's been brainwashed. And a therapist sat down and convinced her that, no, you deserve to go to prison for supporting evil fascist Donald Trump. The U.S. election could never. I mean, this is brainwashing, right? But apparently, and it's the very same people that tell us MAGA is a cult. MAGA is a cult. Dr. Steve Hassan, this scumbag, who's targeted our organization, who's gone after us. He wrote a whole book, The Cult of Trump, and that Donald Trump is brainwashing and mind controlling people because he says fake news and because he repeats certain catchphrases. It's all secret hypnotic mind control. Meanwhile, 70-year-old woman goes to prison and then gets a therapist who tells her that she deserved to go to prison. And then she gets a presidential pardon. And she says, I don't want to be pardoned. I deserved to go to prison. I want to support the Capitol Police. This is mind control. I mean, and if this happened in any other country, we would see it as brainwashing and mind control. But because it's America and everybody knows that Donald Trump is bad, and everybody knows, that's what the mainstream media line is. It's suddenly okay that people are being mind controlled. And this is what the deep state is working on, right? This is what they have in mind. The deprogrammers of the 1970s that kidnapped people and browbeat them into changing their religious views. They're the very same people that wrote, and they didn't write, but they trained the BreadTube commentators on social media. And I exposed that in my book, BreadTube Serves Imperialism. I exposed that it was people connected to U.S. intelligence agencies who were involved in forcible deprogramming of people in religious groups in the 1970s. They were involved in organizing BreadTube. I exposed that, and for daring to expose that, and I didn't know how right I was. I've been targeted like you wouldn't believe because I exposed that. Well, now the deep state they're actively doing it, right? And it looks like this woman who went into the Capitol to support Trump. She did her prison time and then was given a mental health professional who convinced her that she deserved incarceration. You know, I mean, this is scary stuff. But I guess we're supposed to be okay with it because it's only brainwashing. It's only mind control if the communists do it, if the bad guys do it, if Trump does it, it's bad. And this is what they've got in mind. You know, and there you go. I mean, I just wanted to share that story with you all. And they're bragging about it. It's like, oh, they're going to start pathologizing dissident ideas, right? This is something that the deep state is already actively doing. If you don't support Russia, if you don't support the USA sending billions of dollars in weapons to Ukraine, clearly you're mentally ill and brainwashed by Russian media. So you need to be deprogrammed to understand that Russia is our enemy, right? This is what they're thinking about. This is what they're actively doing. And if you're okay with that, if that doesn't bother you, I don't know what to say to you. But those of us who are in, anti-imperialist politics, those of us who traveled around the world and know what's actually going on, we should find this very, very, very scary and very, very disturbing. And that's why we need to build an organization. We absolutely must build an organization. And there are a lot of great opportunities right now. I think we can accomplish a lot. We can build our organization. We can oppose imperialism. There's a lot of great things ahead for us as an organization. But that said, we have to keep in mind that the stakes are getting higher. We've got to support Tulsi Gabbard when those confirmation hearings start. That's number one. Number two, we have absolutely got to support any peace deal that happens. And we at the Center for Political Innovation, we did a great thing on Inauguration Day. And I will show you the video, of what we did in the morning. But there's a lot more that's coming out. Peter Coffin is going to release a whole documentary about how we intervened on Inauguration Day. It's going to be very exciting. We have the videos of the speeches at our amazing banquet that we did. But I'm just going to show you, this is the video of what we did. This was us in the streets of New York City outside the inauguration at the Capital One Arena. Big crowd of people, huge crowd of people here to support Donald Trump, pouring in to watch the inauguration ceremony in the Capital One Arena. Yeah, set up here, over there. How you feeling? How you feeling?
I'm good. It was fun to pass out pamphlets at the hotel there. Everybody was asking for more.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We need to heal America as well. We need to pray for America. We need to make our country great again. We need to take over. The people need to take over to make our country better again. And I hope Trump can help us with that.
Donald Trump for one of the greatest moments of his first presidency, when he went to a country that America has technically been at war with since the 1950s and gave peace a chance. We want to make peace around the world.
You're with Russia, Iran, Brazil instead of EU, traditional American allies.
Yeah, rather than the bankers in London or in Wall Street who are trying to plunge us into poverty, who are trying to hold on to their system rather than trying to build up our economy and economies around the world, making people poorer, degrowing society. We want to stand with the countries of the world that want to build economies.
We need a government of action to fight for working families.
If he could come and set a peace treaty with Israel and Gaza, they can stop massacring and genocide the Palestinian people, I will call him the greatest president in history.
I think that Donald Trump is the man to bridge the gap between China and North Korea and Russia and the U.S.
I hope he is. I mean, when he was in office the first time, he did an amazing thing by visiting North Korea. That was awesome. However, I really didn't like what he did when he murdered Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian leader. I thought that was a huge blunder. It almost brought us to the brink of World War III. And so I'm concerned. I hear a lot of good things coming out of Donald Trump right now. And the fact that the TikTok founder is at the inauguration
inauguration right now. The fact that that he brought peace. Biden was always saying he wanted a ceasefire, but he wasn't able to make it happen. Biden was weak, but Trump was able to force Netanyahu to accept a ceasefire deal.
But I'd love to see, production happen in America again. I'd love to see, solid jobs, right, that aren't these sort of like financial information things, but it's really a stable, solid thing.
Because we want to hire the China Railroad Company to build high-speed rail across America. We want to work with Russia. We want to build railroads from Alaska across the Bering Sea, etc. Because there's nothing for us to gain in trying to prevent these countries from joining with the world economy.
And I think it should be a partnership. We should hire American workers. We should hire American companies, and it should be a joint operation. For example, nuclear power. I'm a big fan of nuclear power, right? If we're going to get off in fossil fuels, we're not going to get off it with windmills and solar panels. We need to go to something higher, and China is leading the world in fusion energy research right now. That's why China just got helium-3 from the moon, is because they want to do fusion energy research.
It would be good for Americans to be able to trade with them. And if we want the situation in those countries to get better, we should want to trade with them, because there's nothing for us to influence them by trying to beat them down and tell them that they're doing things wrong. We've seen that doesn't work.
Kamala wasn't a good choice, you know what I'm saying? And then they play the identity politics too much. That's really getting played out in 2025. Identity politics, trying to play the white and black game, divide and conquer. We live in the internet state. That's played out. That's very played out.
We need a more stable economy and society that's good for families, right? That's good for business, and not one that is just totally chaotic.
Maybe joining the BRICS economy, not trying to keep them in poverty. Keeping them in poverty keeps Americans in poverty. We need to be building the economy of the world.
This idea that smaller is better, and that it's better if we have less, and we just we just got to go back to nature and all that. That's pessimistic, horrific Malthusian thinking. Growth is the answer. Human beings are always inventing and reinventing our way we've interacted with our environment. Ants have been making their ant farms the same way for thousands of years. Beavers have been making their beaver dams the same way. But just 5,000-6,000 years, human beings have gone from hunter-gatherers in the woods to space travel and iPhones. Human beings are amazing. We have creative power that is amazing. And now is not the time to be pessimistic. We need to believe in growth.
So you're not concerned about climate change or anything like that?
I think climate change is certainly a concern, but the answer is to go higher, right? If fossil fuels aren't working out, we need to get something better than fossil fuels. The answer is not to go backward. Human beings never go backward.
Should we let Iran get the nuke?
Iran has said several times that they do not want nuclear bombs. Do I think that they should be allowed to have peaceful nuclear energy? Absolutely, and they've been completely compliant with, with nuclear non-proliferation treaty. Unlike some of our allies, like Israel.
They're trying to arrest Donald Trump, all the fake charges, indictments on him, the attempt assassination. I think all that plays with the common people. The common people ain't stupid. And then, we love to turn fake news. I never heard a president describe the news like that.
The overwhelming majority of the American people do not want a new war. Yet the criminals like Biden and the neocons, etc., have been trying to push for wars around the world to hold on to their dying system. Only peace will make America great again.
People are not fooled. They got fooled with Obama. Most of my people say, "Oh, you fooled me with Obama. You won't fool me again."
It's like when they interview Kamala and she goes, what are you going to do different from Biden? And she says, nothing. Like a total softball. It's like, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to change anything. So people are like, yeah, no.
Who will help to dismantle the deep state that is oppressing not only Americans but the people of the world. We need to be developing our economy, not tearing it down with degrowth and destruction. Only peace will make America great again.
If we were still burning wood to heat our homes, we would have deforested the planet many, many times over. But we don't. Now we started burning coal, now we burn fossil fuels. We're reinventing our relationship with nature. That's the nature of humanity.
The neocons who are in opposition to Trump, the John Boltons, etc., they have said that, if Trump comes into office, that'll be the end of NATO. Well, I think that would be a great thing. What do we have to gain by arming countries in Europe? continuing to fund their militaries so that what? They can have free healthcare and our citizens can go and die on the steps of a hospital? It's completely unfair and stupid.
Donald Trump, he can't be president again because there's only 2 terms allowed in the Constitution. However, he wants to be remembered as a great leader. That's what Donald Trump wants to be remembered as. So to be a great leader, he needs to stand up to Wall Street, he needs to stand up to the war makers, he needs to fight for working families here in America.
What would you say to the people who call Trump a fascist, say that we're in danger of losing our democracy?
I think they just don't have any historical perspective to know what they're saying. I mean, that's just factually untrue.
Do you think Donald Trump can bring peace to Korea? Can he bring peace to Korea? Do you support the banner? You like it?
Hope that President Trump can contribute to denuclearize North Korea and talk to Kim Jong-un and have some the conversation and then bring the peace on the Korean Peninsula.
Yeah, you're happy to see this?
Yeah.
The masses of the people in their millions are the makers of history, not the elites on Wall Street, not the Bidens of the world, the neocons who want to keep you poor so that they can stay rich. Only peace will make America great again.
Yeah, it was an amazing day. And if you can all do me a favor, please retweet this video. Please retweet it. It would be really, really great. So yeah, please retweet the video so that more people see it. That would be really, really greatly appreciated. We really want people to know what we did. I will say we did so many interviews out there that we're still trying to compile them. So if you come across an image of our banner, the Washington Post took our picture. We did so many interviews with so many different outlets. So many people filmed us, took their picture with our banner, etc. It was really, really a great day in the streets of Washington, D.C. But I will tell you, it was cold. It was cold, and there was a lot of heavy lifting in the cold because the streets of D.C. were blocked off. Traffic was insane, and we had to lug stuff, and it was a hard day. But thank you to everybody who came out. We had a great crew of people that were there. People from Pennsylvania, people from Chicago, people from Minnesota, people from New York, people from Boston, people from Colorado. People came all the way from Canada, and our team worked together amazingly. And it was very, very awesome. Very, very awesome. And I'm still just in awe of what we did. It was a packed day. It was a go day. We were in the streets in the morning. And then we had our amazing event that night. About 30 people came out. We didn't expect it to be huge. We didn't promote it. And it's in freezing cold temperatures in Washington, D.C. But we had good food, a really nice food buffet, and some amazing speeches that were just amazing speeches, which we'll be posting. I've got one queued up for tomorrow morning from Noah. Amazing speeches, amazing music from Brian, and a lot of people worked really, really hard to pull it off. And, I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be. I knew it would be hard, but I didn't know it would be this hard. So shout out to everybody who donated money to make it happen. Shout out to everybody who worked very hard. shout out to everyone who promoted the event, everyone who came out to the event. It is appreciated. I met some people for the first time that are fans of our community and the work that we do. We had an amazing day in Washington, D.C. And there were other people who couldn't make it who were there in spirit. And I got to tell you, it was difficult to pull off, but we did it. We are building a network of anti-imperialist, anti-globalist activists here in America who stand with countries that are under attack, like People's Korea, like China, like Russia, like Vietnam, Cuba, like Iran, and expose the imperialist deep state and its crimes. And we are building a network of people that are doing good stuff. And we have an economic vision for rebuilding America with a government of action that fights for working families. It's really, really great what we are doing. And we're doing it. We are actually doing it. We are building the movement that is needed in this country urgently. And Donald Trump's election shows that the country is ripe for this kind of movement, because at the end of the day, what Donald Trump is going to realize is he can't do it alone. The only way he'll actually be able to stop the constant regime change wars, to stop the attacks on our civil liberties, the only way he's going to be able to rejuvenate our economy, there has to be a mass movement. And it's going to be a hard thing for people to learn. They think the way to do it is with governments hands off. No, you need a government that controls the economy and regulates and controls the economy and defeats the power of the big monopolies. It's not going to be easy. There's a lot of learning that has to go on, but we've got to build a crew of people who understand the importance of the mission that we have to carry out, to defeat globalism, imperialism, to fight for the working class, fight for working families, to build a new America where the people come first. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy to build the movement, but it must be built. And we are doing something for real. And I'm very, very proud of what we pulled off. And there's going to be a lot more. You're going to see the speeches that were given that day. You're going to see a whole documentary of the day's events. A lot happened. So, that's all coming up. So just keep that in mind. But we did a very, very good thing on Inauguration Day. Thousands of copies of the pamphlet that we wrote with Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un shaking hands were given out. Thousands of them were given out. Many thousands of people saw our banner with Trump and Kim on it, and it was a good day. We did good stuff representing anti-imperialism on the day that Donald Trump was inaugurated. CPI is very, very important. It takes an organization, a group of dedicated people to carry out these kinds of operations. And we're doing it. And I guess the next thing, if you're involved with CPI, the next thing we're doing is we're having a workshop in Minnesota, and we'd love to have you there. If you can make it. We have a link where you can register. We have a registration link. So if you'd like to come and get to know our organization at our upcoming workshop, it's going to be good out in Minneapolis. It's going to be a good day. So we got that going on. So please register and join us at the workshop. We got that going on. I would appreciate it if people would retweet the video that we did of our intervention at Inauguration Day. Let other people see that we did that. It would be great if you could retweet that and share and show people what we're up to. And on that note, why don't we do our roll call, and then I'll start answering people's super chat questions. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who is with us? Who is with us? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us? Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Who joined us tonight? Who joined us? Who's with us? Who's with us? Jenny in Cincinnati is with us. Carter in Minnesota is with us. Lawrence Johnson in Chicago is with us. Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Dahe in Seattle is with us. Rome, New York. John McCarthy in Chicago. Ryan in Kansas City. Valen in South Carolina. Courtney in Northern Virginia. Balthazar in Oakland. Jonathan in Los Angeles. Ed in Louisville. The Seasoned New in China, Ian in Chester, England. Alex in Brazil, Bob in Troy, New York. Gonzalo in Argentina. April and Chris in Salt Lake City. Daniel from Bochum, Germany. Boston, Noah in Boston. Good to have you with us. The South, Kingfish. Jack Dawkins in Arizona. Devin in West Virginia. Good to have you with us. Samuel in Springfield, Massachusetts. Very, very good. Mark Jones in Utica, New York. Philip in Scablands, Washington. Auckland, New Zealand. Kiwi Corner. Neil Fraser in Hong Kong. Mohsen in Iran. Esmeralda in Houston, Texas. Diana in Orlando, Florida. Briggy in Pennsylvania. So good to have you with us. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Anybody else? Names and locations. It's so good to have you all here with us. We have 2 super chats, actually 3 super chats that have come in, and we have 4 Rumble rants, but only 2 of them are questions. So I do need, Patrick in Maine, good to have you. Hello from Barcelona, right? But yeah, if folks could send more super chats, it is appreciated. I'm going to be, things are slowing down a little bit. We got the workshop coming up in February, but, I'm not preparing for a big event, so I'll probably be able to stream more often. But I need you all to make it worth my while. Please send super chats. Make it worth my while to get on here every night and analyze world events and talk politics with you all. I find it very enjoyable, but your super chats also help me pay my bills, etc. So send super chats if you can. That would be greatly appreciated. We got Sean in Aro Grande, California. Very, very good. So anybody else? Names and locations, names and locations. Anybody else? Yeah. Mohsen from Iran. Gabby in Chicago. Alex in Brazil. Bob in Troy, New York. Gonzalo in Argentina. Ian in Chester, England. Alex in California. Ed in Louisville. Jonathan in Los Angeles. Lawrence Johnson in Chicago. Just trying to go over, see if I missed anybody. All right. Good to have you all here. You all are a great community that we have to get on here and stream. Gabby in Chicago. Shout out to you, Gabby, and shout out to your little friend. Your little friend was great. And shout out to you as well. Yeah, it was really, really great. So why don't we, Mariah is here. Welcome, Mariah. Good to have you with us. Why don't I start answering people's super chat questions? If you've got more questions, please send more super chats. So we'll do Rumble rants first. First one is position on Laken-Riley Act and Trump's immigration policy. Well, Leo, that's Leo Messi. I am just going to be straight up with you. I don't think that Trump's approach to the immigration question is correct, and I don't think it's going to help the situation. First of all, we can agree that the crisis of mass migration is bad. It is bad. Okay? And that the idea that, dead bodies found along the U.S. border, thousands and thousands of people not being able to live in their own countries because of drug cartels and poverty and fleeing here, the idea that that's somehow a good thing is bull honky. It's bad. It's very, very bad. And it is true that the wave of mass migration does lower the wages of American workers. There's no way around that. Electricians here in New York City, it used to be a job that you had to be a union member to get. And now there's a lot of electricians from around the world who've come here who will do it for almost minimum wage. And electricians, union electricians who worked really, really hard to get through their apprenticeship, they're screwed. And there's many examples of this. So the mass migration situation is bad. That said, what it is that Republicans want to do and what Donald Trump is his response, which is raids, etc., is only going to make things worse. Why? Well, first of all, it is illegal to pay an undocumented worker less than minimum wage. There's no law that says, oh, if someone's under gets paid less than minimum, if someone's not documented, you can just pay them a less than minimum wage. There's no law that says that. Undocumented workers are entitled to minimum wage. It is illegal to employ someone and not pay them minimum wage. And the reason that they get away with it with undocumented workers is because they don't speak up. And why do they not speak up? They're afraid of getting deported. So if you put ICE all through the neighborhoods and you terrorize them and you make immigrants afraid, it's going to be much easier to exploit them. And they're going to work for even less wages than they already get. And if you terrorize immigrant workers, they're going to be more vulnerable, more afraid, and they're going to accept worse conditions. So there's that. The other thing, crime. And that is a big, big aspect of this. The drug cartels and the coyotes that smuggle people across the border. Those are bad folks. They're not good. They do very evil things. They torture people. They rape people. They do very, very horrible things. And one way to make sure that those folks stay in business is make immigrant communities afraid to call the police. Make immigrant communities terrified that if they live in above ground society, that they will be deported. Make it so that immigrants are so in the shadows and hiding that they have to depend on those kind of criminal organizations, and those groups will flourish. So all the things that Trump is doing are actually going to make things worse. So I just, that said, a lot of people are pointing out that this Trump immigration crackdown, at the moment, it doesn't appear to really amount to much. This is theater, right? There were similar raids that happened under Obama. There were similar raids that happened in his first term. And that this looks like this is what his supporters want to see. There's a lot of resentment and anger at immigrants among American workers, which makes sense because their wages have gone down because they're competing with undocumented workers. And so Donald Trump has to do this to kind of put on a show. That said, it's not good. It's not the solution. Making immigrant communities afraid, making immigrant communities afraid to call the police, making immigrant communities, afraid to, demand better treatment from their employers is only going to make the problem worse. The solution to the crisis of mass migration is economic development. We need to be making the situation in Central and South America economically better while making our own situation better. We need something like the Belt and Road Initiative. What China has done is a very, very effective anti-immigration policy. Build infrastructure, create economic opportunity. When people have jobs, they tend to stay where they are. When people have a good life and good economic opportunity, they don't join drug gangs, they don't join terrorist groups, they stay where they are. And China's policy of building infrastructure and engaging in win-win cooperation and trade with countries throughout Central Asia, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and the One Belt, One Road Initiative has been a very effective anti-immigration policy. People in Afghanistan, people in Tajikistan, people in Kazakhstan don't flee to China or Russia. They stay in their country because life is getting better. They have economic opportunities, and they don't join drug gangs, etc. And that this tends to be the way to do it. The road to stopping the crisis of mass migration is economic development. You'll notice there's very little immigration to the United States from Nicaragua because Nicaragua is a socialist, anti-imperialist country that is empowering people to start their own businesses, that has electrified the entire country, has wiped out illiteracy. So people in Nicaragua, they stay put. The people that are coming to the United States tend to be coming from Guatemala, from Honduras, from countries where there's a lot of instability. So there you go. Yeah. The mass migration tends to come from countries that are being looted by Wall Street, that have governments that just roll over and let degrowth austerity policies continue. The people there are suffering, and so they flee. And the drug gang thing, that is the result of U.S. foreign policy. The USA began arming drug cartels during the 1980s to fight against the Sandinistas and the socialist movement in Nicaragua. You know, and there's a whole history there, the paramilitaries in Colombia, etc. But we can't go back, and people say that's not relevant because we can't change the past, and they're right. But that said, if we had governments like Daniel Ortega's government in Nicaragua that was building and constructing and electrifying, people wouldn't want to flee. And instead, we have governments that just let Wall Street do whatever they want. And so there's an issue. So, you know, I like what Claudia Sheinbaum is doing in Mexico. I like her policies. She seems very pro-growth, very pro-development. I like Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo in Nicaragua and the Sandinistas and what they're doing. I like Bukele, you know, and his policies in El Salvador and what he's doing, you know. And if we had pro-growth, innovationist construction governments throughout that region that were teaming up with China, teaming up with our government to build and construct, we wouldn't have a mass migration problem. The road to stopping mass migration is win-win cooperation and economic development. That is my answer to your question. Dahe Ko is responding to what I said earlier, and he said every accusation is a confession. Look, you know, when they, you know, accused me the way they did a couple years ago, it was basically said, and I still can't get over this. This still is hard for me to process that anyone could actually believe this. But this is what they said, is that the entire reason I formed CPI, the entire reason I created the organization, that I wrote all these books that are thousands of pages in length, that I built the organization, the entire reason I did that was all just this big, elaborate scheme to get sexual favors out of people. And I don't know how anyone could possibly believe that, you know. I mean, one consensual thing happened with one person and, you know, but whatever. But based on what they wrote, where they framed everything in the most negative light, they made it sound like the entire reason I formed CPI was an elaborate scheme to get sexual favors. And I look at that and I think, how in the world could anyone think that is true? But that's who we're dealing with. The people who make these accusations, that's how nuts they are. They would do something like that. They would actually do something like that. You know, I mean, if you want sexual favors, there are many ways one could get them, you know, but forming an anti-imperialist activist group is not one of them. Writing books, going to international conferences, it's an absolutely outrageous accusation. But these people actually, they actually would do something like that because all they think about is sex. All they think about is sex, and they are vengeful, murderous people. And so it's projection, right? Yes, there are a lot easier ways to get sex out of people. But if you actually read what these people wrote, that's what they claimed. That apparently I don't believe in anti-imperial. I don't believe in any of this stuff. It's all just a vast, elaborate scheme for me to get sexual favors out of people. Again, there are much easier ways to get sexual favors out of people, but that's what they believe. And if you choose to believe them, that's what you're choosing to believe. And you are a fool. But regardless, they blasted this everywhere all over the internet, and they've very much tried to destroy my reputation. They hurt my wife. They've hurt, you know, my parents. They've hurt other members of my family. It's a really nasty thing that these people did. What I wish people would understand, and I do occasionally get frustrated. I'm not so much frustrated with the people who are putting it out there, because that's what scummy people do. That's what evil people do. I'm frustrated with the people who don't seem to care. You know, they're like, oh, I like you, Caleb. I like your content. You seem like a good guy. But there's this other person who repeats these disgusting allegations and blows them up and brings them up about every conversation about you. And I like him too. Well, why would you like somebody who does that, right? Why is that okay? And then they just get mad at me and decide it's my fault. And it's like, you know, and I mean, look, I'm not going to win the internet. The internet is rigged, right? But, you know, if you want to be part of CPI and you want to be part of our community, you need to decide. You need to decide that it's not okay what they did to me, you know, and it's that simple. And I have had at least 5 of the people who were involved in that actually apologize to me because they realize that it was wrong what they did. But it doesn't matter, you know, because they can't undo it. And what was done to me was a nasty, nasty, evil thing And I don't even really want to talk about it too much, but I continue talking about it because there are people who seem to think it's not a big deal. See people who say, oh, well, somebody was mean to me on the internet the other day, and that's the same thing. No, it's not, actually. No, it's not. And, you know, I really, really don't want people around who think that people who continue to bring this up, and it's been 2.5 years, but people continue to bring this up and lie about it and blow it out of proportion and say that it's things that it wasn't, say somehow I'm a rapist, which is funny because I'm not accused of ever having sex with anyone, you know, and say that I'm all kinds of things, you know, and that's okay for them to speak that way because they're fun to listen to on the internet. Well, if you want anything to do with people that are continuing to bring this up, continuing to lie about it, continuing to, you know, put it out there and associate my name with it, I don't want you to be around. It's that simple. I mean, if you're somebody who thinks it's okay, you think certain internet personalities who talk about this endlessly, who continue to bring it up every time my name comes up, they follow it up with a slew of childish sexual insults and all that. You think that's okay? I don't want you listening to this right now. I don't ever want to talk to you again. I don't want you part of this community. I just don't. Right. And I mean, I'm serious about this. Some things are okay and some things are not. Right. If you disagree with me politically, fine. If you don't agree with this or that, but if you continue to bring that up, and if you continue to lie about it, continue to blow it out of proportion, you are not a good person. You are a bad person, and you are doing something evil, and you're cooperating with the government, and you're cooperating with the deep state. And it's just like that pastor, you know, scolding Trump. Oh, how heroic. She won't stand up to Israel, but she'll, you know, scold Trump about transgender kids, right? Going after me. That's real heroic. Go after the RT reporter. Go after the guy who's met with Putin. That's really sticking it to the man right there, you know? If you go after me, and you target me and you smear me, you're on the side of the imperialists. And that is obvious. And trust me, if they had anything more on me than that, they would have brought it up. They tried to make that little tiny irrelevant thing into something it wasn't. And even that, they had nothing. They had nothing. They had some conversations, some private stuff that went on, and that was it. So, you know, if I was really doing anything, I mean, trust me, they would give me the death penalty for jaywalking if they could get away with it. Okay. So the idea that, I mean, anyway, I've gone on about this too much. You know, but anyway, I just want to mention that because, and as Dahe says, every accusation is a confession. You know, every accusation is a confession. And yeah, they are the kind of people that would, you know, that the only thing they think about is sex. So of course, right? That's what it's all about, right? That's how deranged these people are. So that's all I want to say about that. But thank you for your support, Dahe. What do you think about Trump's Stargate program? Well, let's Google that and make sure we know what that is, right? I don't want to respond to something. Building AI infrastructure. I did hear about this with the Defense Department. I don't really know what exactly it is. I understand that AI is a growing field of technology. It makes sense that the government would want to invest and get ahead of it. But I mean, it sounds like something that could be very, very all-inclusive. Look, we don't need to be afraid of AI. We don't need to be afraid of technology. You know, I'm not anti-AI. I'm not anti-technology. I'm anti a system where that would lead to poverty. Technological advancement and making it easier to, you know, create things is all a good thing. AI is not plagiarism. AI is not, you know, going to have the machines take over, and it's not going to make Terminator a reality. That said, AI, you know, AI is the future. It's very important. So the idea of the government investing in research around how to advance on that, I mean, inherently, there's nothing wrong with it. Unfortunately, because we live in an imperialist society, it's very possible they could be using it for purposes that are not good, right? And there's no, you know, no shocker there, you know, that the U.S. imperialist state would use AI for surveillance, for harassment, for, you know, disinformation, for all kinds of things. And they do, right? So, you know, that's why I would be suspicious. I wouldn't be suspicious based on, you know, I wouldn't be suspicious based on the fact that Donald Trump is just funding this program. But, you know, the U.S. government often does things without good reason. But the U.S. government investing in scientific research is essentially a good thing. And funding technological research and trying to get ahead of new technologies, I mean, on the surface, it seems like a good thing. It's very possible they could be using it for bad. There you go. Milley also gave a speech at Davos the same day. I saw. Have you seen it? He once again blamed the CIA pushing identity politics on communists. Of course, right? Of course. And there's nobody who falls into that more than the communists, right? I mean, the communists are the best friends of the CIA, right? You know, I mean, do you think that they're woke in China? Right? Do you think that they have 12 genders for kindergartners in China? No. But if you go and talk to the Party of Socialism and Liberation, you better think that. And if you don't think that, you're a Nazi, you know, and that's why I'm done calling myself a communist, is communism has been taken over by the CIA psyops, you know, intended to destroy communism. I am very much an anti-imperialist, and I very much stand with the countries around the world that have emerged as a result of anti-colonial revolutions. And Lenin's understanding of imperialism, and Marx and his understanding of capitalism and overproduction and the tendency of the falling rate of profits. All of that's important. But communism has just become a form of teenage Satanism in America at this point. It is, you know, Marx's vision of communism was a society with so much wealth and abundance that the state faded away, that all inequality faded away. These communists believe in degrowth. They believe in Malthusianism. Marx wrote whole books opposing Malthusianism, and these people really believe in limited resources, etc. So we're blazing new trail. We're not communists in CPI. We are innovationists. We are a new stage. At this point, we want a society where the banks, factories, and industries are organized to serve public good and not the profits of a wealthy few. We want to unleash human creativity to reach new bounds. We believe in the human spirit and growth. We are opposed to globalism, imperialism, the system that's destroying the lives of working people. But communism, TM, right? The red flag, the hammer sickle, that's dead. That's over. It's over. And most countries around the world that are led by Marxist-Leninist parties don't even sound like that anymore. You go to China, it's still a communist Marxist-Leninist party, but they don't sound this way. They say poverty is not socialism, to be rich is glorious. They quote Confucius and Chinese traditional culture along with Mao and the Little Red Book and Deng Xiaoping. You know, Vietnam, again, they're very proud of Ho Chi Minh and the anti-colonial revolution. They're very proud of their socialist-oriented market economy, but they believe in economic growth, and they're not, you know, obsessed with the trans thing, and they're doing something, you know, they sound like us, right? Meanwhile, in Iran, they very strongly do not believe in Marxism. They are Shia Muslims, but they have a state central plan. They emerged as an anti-colonial revolution, you know, and they have a planned economy that's focused on economic growth. So call it what you want. In Latin America today, you know, Cuba is still led by a Marxist-Leninist communist party, but they've repudiated the economic theories of Che Guevara. They admire Che Guevara. He's a national hero for his heroism in fighting imperialism, but they reject his economic theories and his concept of the new socialist man. They say the idea of building socialism without material incentives is very mistaken, and they say his economic policies were not helpful in Cuba. Meanwhile, in Venezuela and in Nicaragua, the governments very much, they draw from Marxism, but they also draw from Christianity. They also draw from the tradition of Simón Bolívar and his anti-colonial struggle. They draw from the indigenous traditions, etc. And Bolivarianism, the Sandinista movement in Nicaragua, these are great socialistic, anti-imperialist movements, but they are essentially what we are. They're innovationists. They're pro-growth, and they believe in a state-centrally planned economy and all that. The people in America who call themselves communists, and I've said this over and over, I don't want to get repetitive, but they don't believe in what we believe anymore. You know, they believe in worker cooperatives. They believe that America is an evil, racist country that needs to be burned down because it's evil. They believe in degrowth. They believe in whatever the latest trendy, woke, liberal talking points are. We oppose imperialism. We believe in a planned economy. We want to fight for working families, and we celebrate human creativity and human growth. We are innovationists. We are a new stage. That's what we are. We are preserving the revolutionary essence of Marxism, but we also, look, I don't think dialectical materialism is correct. I don't think that there is only matter in the universe. So that I reject. And I do believe that communism attached itself to the left aesthetic and the desire to rebel and tear things down, that kind of satanic impulse. And that wasn't good. And that was something that the communist government struggled against. And that Stalin, when he repudiated Trotsky, that was a repudiation of his theory of permanent revolution, which was chaos and violence and vengeance, and that the Cultural Revolution in China was a disaster. And when Deng Xiaoping came to power and repudiated the Cultural Revolution and emphasized that socialism is about growth and progress, that was a step forward. And that that communism has largely moved away from some of the problems that even genuine communism, while it is anti-imperialist, while it is pro-growth, there is still this spirit of rebellion that kind of hung over it that they've been trying to repudiate. We are the innovationist movement. We are a new stage. We are about radical optimism, pro-growth, pro-humanity. We love creativity. We love the human spirit. We celebrate innovation. We are something new. We are innovationists. So long live innovationism. There we go. To what extent is Trump driven by material forces, class interests, versus being driven by his ego and wanting to be liked? In which issue do you see the greatest divergence between the two? Asks Mike M. Interesting question. Well, first of all, there's a division in the ruling class. That's very clear between the upper levels of capital, the ultra rich, and the lower levels of capital, right? And that a lot of the base of Trump, and I pointed this out many times, Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy, Betsy DeVos, the billionaire whose money comes from Tupperware parties. Who else? The fracking companies that are in competition with big oil, various weapons manufacturing corporations. A lot of those folks are at odds with the ultra rich. Now, a lot of the ultra rich are trying to get a piece of Trump. Yes, I am allowing super chats. A number of them have come through. Please send them. But a lot of the ultra rich, like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, they saw that Trump is winning and they are attaching themselves to Trump. Jeff Bezos was very anti-Trump, but at the last minute he saw, look, Trump is going to win. The Washington Post did not endorse Kamala Harris, and Jeff Bezos has been trying to get in with Trump. And so there's a lot of the ultra rich that want to make sure Trump doesn't take action against them and are trying to attach themselves to Trump. And that there is a division in the ruling class between the ultra rich and their kind of managerial schemes to run society and the lower levels of capital, the lower level capitalists, that just want to make money and are pro-growth. I believe Trump is pro-growth and that he is aligned with a strata of the capitalist class that is pro-growth, that doesn't buy into the kind of managerial schemes to stabilize society amid an economic crisis. That said, how much is he driven by his ego and wanting to be liked? Well, they go together, because the people who would influence Trump and would like him and would applaud for him are doing so based on their own interests. And that, it's not like Trump is getting directly paid. I mean, I know he has businesses, et cetera, but, the people who align with Trump are often supporting Trump because he's working in their economic interest. So they're going to applaud him and support him. I don't see the two as separate from each other. I see them as kind of tied in with each other. But the main thing to understand is there's a big division in the ruling class. And that's what no one wants to acknowledge, right? We want to just, that's the line of Ben Norton and all these clowns. Oh, all the capitalists are together. They're all the same. No, they are not. There are very clear differences among the ruling class, and that creates an opening for us. And our job is to defeat imperialism. And that every revolutionary movement in history has begun with a division in the ruling class. You go back to the Chartist movement, the first working class movement in Britain. Go and read Capital by Marx. He describes how it started out. There was a fight in Britain between the land-owning capitalists who owned land and the factory-owning capitalists, the industrialists. And the land-owning capitalists were wanting to push back against the industrialists, so they funded the Chartist movement that fought for the rights of workers on the job. So the very first working class movement began with a division in the ruling class. That divisions in the ruling class are what create the openings that lead to revolutionary movements. That's something, if you study the Russian Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, every revolution in history, the U.S. Civil War, whenever there's a great mass uprising of the people, a mass revolutionary movement, it starts out with the rich and powerful fighting among each other, and then the people being drawn into the struggle. So that's happening now, and we can't let the moment pass. We have the opportunity to influence history. And I do appreciate that people are sending super chats. So there we go. What are your thoughts on H-1B visas? Well, I would like the United States to get to the point that we don't need them. That would be ideal. It would be great if we were training enough engineers and scientists, technicians in America that we didn't need them. We're not at that point. American education sucks. And that's because of Cold War brain drain. During the Cold War, the U.S. government figured out that it was a brilliant strategy to bring all the newly educated people from the third world to the first world. And rather than training Americans to be smart enough to become doctors or engineers or scientists, we could import doctors, engineers, and scientists from other countries. And it would be a win for imperialism because those countries would lose the engineers and the scientists and the doctors they need to build up their economy. And on top of that, they didn't have to create an education system here that could result in us becoming those engineers and scientists. We lost because we got shitty education. The developing countries lost because they lost the engineers and scientists and skilled people they needed. And imperialism gained. And the H-1B situation sucks. But we can't just get rid of it. We can't just make it go away. I mean, it's still happening. I would hope that we could eventually transition to having a society where we provide people with the kind of education they need so that we don't need those kind of visas anymore. That's what I would like. We're not there yet. So there we go. Alex Mockford, thank you for your super chat and your other super chat. I really do appreciate it. It helps me, do these streams more regularly. I'll be back tomorrow night, it looks like. Getting my strength back from what was a very difficult but worth it inauguration day intervention that we carried out, operation of CPI. Very proud of what we did. So thank you. Super chats are always appreciated. I missed the beginning. Did you mention that Trump fired Iran hawk Brian Hook and replaced him with the guy who negotiated the Gaza ceasefire? I did mention that Donald Trump has assigned the guy who negotiated the Gaza ceasefire, and has assigned him to negotiate with Iran, which is a really good sign. Donald Trump was very opposed to the Iran nuclear deal. He called it a bad deal. He said he was going to rip it up, and he did. And that was awful. And then he murdered Qasem Soleimani. But now it looks like Donald Trump is acting like he actually wants to negotiate with Iran. It looks to me, folks, like Donald Trump noticed when Israel stabbed him in the back, and that he's already being less pro-Israel than Biden was. Not in rhetoric, but in action. Yeah. So there you go. A lot of people are making a big deal out of the fact that that they can take the visa of students who praise Hamas and Hezbollah. Well, that's already the policy, folks, right? If you're going around the United States promoting terrorism, you can lose your student visa. That's, or doing anything illegal, right? That's already on the books. That's something that he can make a big show out of. I'm doing this. Very similar. He's gonna deny any communist the right to be a U.S. citizen. There's already a law that's already on your citizenship form. Are you a communist? And if you say yes, you can't be a citizen. That's already the case. These are theatrical moves to please dumb people that are part of the Trump coalition. Marco Rubio folks that hate the commies. That we don't want any terrorist students to come in. Well, do you think they let students that are open terrorists come into the United States? No, they do not. Right? If you are If you are somebody who goes around promoting Hezbollah, they're not going to let you into the country, right? If you're somebody who goes around promoting, Hamas and saying Hamas is awesome, they're not going to let you into the country. That's always been the way it is. There are people from the developing world who do come into the United States and are not very loud about their views, but yes, if you are from the Middle East and you come to America and, you're walking around very publicly saying you love Hamas and you love Hezbollah, your visa is not going to last very long. And that's always been the case. So Donald Trump making a big show of that, no. And the communism thing too. Oh, no communist will be allowed in the country. That's already the law. It actually says if you've ever entered the United States from another country, are you a member of the Communist Party or any group that seeks the overthrow of the American government? If you say yes, they don't let you into the country. They even have jokes about it and stuff. That's always been the policy. So, again, if you, anyway, so there you go. But yeah, Donald Trump is looking like he's less pro-Israel than Biden was, that's interesting. Look, anything to improve relations with Iran, I have said, Trump must apologize for murdering Qasem Soleimani. And it may be a long shot, and it may not be possible, but he's got to. That's the only way Iran is going to sit down with the United States. After Trump murdered Qasem Soleimani, at that point, that was such a vicious blow, such a stab in the back for Iran. Trump has to apologize for it, and there's no way around that. And I'm not guaranteeing that'll happen, right? They say Trump doesn't apologize for things. Maybe he doesn't, but I mean, the only way Iran is going to take U.S. negotiations seriously. They got played by Obama and the Iran nuclear deal that went nowhere. Donald Trump has to say, look, that Qasem Soleimani, who protected thousands of Christians in Syria, I shouldn't have killed him. Mike Pompeo, son of a bitch that I'll never allow into my, administration again, who I've stripped of his security clearances. He's the guy who gave me bad information to do it. And, yeah, that's what he's got to say. I hope that he says that. I hope he comes forward and makes that clear. So there you go. But the fact that Trump is even talking about negotiating with Iran is a very, very good sign. Is buying Greenland a move for the land bridge? No, it's not. And in fact, it's funny because I saw that they're blaming Russia for that. They're saying it was Russia that gave Donald Trump the idea to buy Greenland. Well, no, if you look at it, the USA already has a military presence in Greenland. And he's saying, it would position them more effectively for military purposes. And it would the main thing is it would give them more access to the Arctic. It's actually a move that would strengthen the U.S. military position. It's something Russia would not want, right? The Arctic is going to be contested more and more as time goes by. The Arctic is full of natural gas and minerals, and the Arctic is going to be more and more contested. Getting Greenland for the United States would mean, that the USA would have more of a claim on the Arctic. The USA would have more of a military presence there, etc. It's something Russia doesn't want. That said, and I will say this again, and I've said this many times, and this is answering another super chat that came in on the same question. I think it's better to have Donald Trump fighting with other imperialist countries like Canada, like Denmark, Norway, than have them fight with Russia or China, right? I don't think that the USA should expand into these places. But that said, I think it's better to have Donald Trump antagonizing other imperialist countries. Have him make Canada, which is part of the British, Commonwealth, have them mad. Have the British really mad about Canada. Have them all mad. Have, Norway and Denmark mad at Donald Trump. Don't have Russia and China fighting with Trump. And the fact that Trump is friendlier to them, and he brought TikTok back, and he had the Chinese vice premier, and he wants China to open more businesses in America. And he's, talking about, Canada joining with the United States, talking about, that's better. The Panama thing I don't like, and that, in that region, Nicaragua is probably going to build a canal that would be a rival to the Panama Canal through Nicaragua. They've been talking about that for years. Excuse me. It looks like they're going to go ahead and do that. So getting a U.S. military presence in Panama is not a good thing. The USA invaded Panama based on lies in 1990, and that was bad. So the Panama thing doesn't look good to me, but the Canada thing, I don't care about. The Greenland thing, I don't care about. If he actually did it, was that really worth our time and effort? But I think it would be a purchase. It would be economic compulsion. It wouldn't be like a military invasion. It would just be expansion. And if it was done, I mean, I'm not going to be hugely thrilled with it, but I'd rather he do that and fight other imperialist countries than fight with China or Russia or, the new Cold War. I'd rather have inter-imperialist rivalry than the new Cold War. So I'm not worried about it. Look, I think I've heard what Dugin is saying about Trump and how this is almost like a mini revolution and stuff. So it makes sense that Dugin would be supporting anything going on with the Trump administration. And I will say, Hegseth, I mean, he's being gone after very, very viciously. That said, his politics are not that good, right? I mean, he's a Zionist and he's just kind of a regular conservative. But I'm at the point where every time they start telling us so-and-so is just the worst person who ever existed and they're a sex pervert and every time I start to hear that, it just sickens me, right? Because I know who these people are and I know how they lie and I know how they character assassinate and I know what double standards they have and all of that. So I mean, look, I understand why there's a lot of people that they're just so used to the bullshit. They're just so used to the bullshit. Anyone who says anything good immediately gets accused of being a Nazi and a sex predator rapist. And we're all sick of it. We're all goddamn tired of it. We are. I mean, that's what Dr. Phil was saying when he was speaking at Donald Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. We're all tired of this. We're all weary of the cancel culture, weary of the wokeness. The synthetic left is played out. We're all sick and tired of it. I don't really feel too good about Pete Hegseth, honestly. But the way they're going after him is the way they go after everybody who gets in their way. So it looks to me like maybe they think he might get in their way. I mean, I'm not going to endorse him, but everyone's tired of this. We're all sick and tired of this bullshit. We're sick and tired of it, right? And I think that's what this is about. That's the issue here. We're all sick and tired of the bullshit. We're tired of it. We're really, really tired of it. We're really tired of we're just worn out on wokeism. We're just worn out on it, right? When Tara Reid came forward and talked about what Joe Biden did to her, they said, oh, she said something nice about Putin one time, as if that mattered. They didn't take it seriously. But anybody who says anything or is pro-Trump or is criticizing Ukraine or what, they immediately come out with, oh, he was a sex pervert. And, that's a good way of putting it. Noah says 99% of the time it's correct to just reflectively say the opposite of mainstream media, and that's kind of, we're getting to that point. So if they're this mad at Hegseth, maybe there's something good there. I hope to find out what it is someday. Not aware of what it is at this time, but the fact that they are making such a big deal out of him the way they are. Yeah. Look, I saw this. What Brazil did to Venezuela was very shitty. If Venezuela had joined the BRICS, the result would have been a lot of sanctions relief. It would have been a huge victory for Brazil. Lula da Silva, I mean, he's better than the other guy in some ways, but I mean, there's competing factions. The main thing is that Brazil is strong enough as a country. It's large enough of a country. It has a large enough economy that it's a bit more, I guess you might call it, bourgeois nationalist. They never went full Bolivarian in Brazil. Lula da Silva, Dilma Rousseff, they were not like Venezuela. They were not Bolivarian socialists. And they created a lot of social programs. They gave free food to people. And they have a state-owned oil company called Petrobras that is controlled by the Brazilian government, but it has foreign investors. It's like a partnership. But they're not. Brazil is an overwhelmingly free market society. But there's enough wealthy Brazilian capitalists that it's like India, or it's like Turkey, or it's like the Philippines, where they have a level of like economic independence. Now, part of the way they've asserted their economic independence has been with social democracy under Lula da Silva. But that said, Lula da Silva is not a full-on anti-imperialist. And, when he was in prison, he started sounding much more anti-imperialist and started talking about, supporting North Korea and their right to nuclear weapons and all of that. But then when he got back into office, and the imperialists clearly railroaded him to jail. I mean, he was put in jail wrongfully. The judge and the prosecutor were texting each other throughout the trial and throwing the trial for him. And it was great that was revealed. And those texts became revealed, and he was released from prison after the frame up. But that said, he hasn't been a very good leader. And when he was in office the first time, I mean, he wasn't leading Brazil to be a full-on anti-imperialist country. He wasn't. He was leading Brazil to be more independent. He was using social democracy to get it done. But yeah, Brazil is not a revolutionary anti-imperialist country. It's a little bit more independent. It's like India. It's like Turkey. It's like the Philippines. It has a level of independence, but it's not part of the anti-imperialist bloc, right? The BRICS is very exciting, and the fact that they're part of it shows that they're that independent. But not every country in the BRICS is a revolutionary anti-imperialist country. Russia certainly is. China certainly is. Brazil is an independent country that goes back and forth. And there's, they'll do business with Russia and China and Venezuela sometimes, but other times they'll do what the United States says. And yeah, what they did by locking Venezuela out of the BRICS was very, very shitty. It was very bad, and it hurt Venezuela a lot. Venezuela really, really would have benefited by being able to join the BRICS, because one of the big policies of the BRICS is that you can't have sanctions on any other BRICS country. So all the countries in the BRICS would have had to lift all their sanctions on Venezuela, and that didn't happen. And yeah, that was shitty on Brazil's part. It was a big disappointment. What do you think of Trump wanting? I already answered that, right? We did a double header there. Okay. Do you feel it's intentional that posh private schools teach economics and geopolitics while public schools push wokeness, drag queens, and illiteracy? Is that true? Because I feel like some of the private schools are more woke than the public schools are, right? I mean, especially, here in New York City, there was like a truck going around one of these very expensive private schools that was calling them out for teaching critical race theory. And I feel like a lot of the private elite schools are very, very woke. Now, there's always a layer of like evangelical Christian private schools, but that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about posh private schools. I think posh private schools are more woke generally, right? They try to out-woke the public schools, right? And also, if you're in a small town, public schools are not very woke. It's not like it was when I was a kid. I went to a very, very conservative school where even though it was illegal, we had, prayer in school. We were taught creationism in school, etc. But yeah, Noah is backing me up on this. Expensive schools are more woke, right? Yeah, they get a better education, sure, but they're still more woke. The kids are, and that, yeah, the drag queen story hour and stuff, that tends to happen in urban areas or suburbs. You go to a rural small town in Alabama, they're not having drag queen story hour. Maybe they don't discriminate. Maybe the teachers don't go on anti-gay rants like they once did, but it just depends. Education in America is very, very localized. It's very, very, very localized. It just depends where you are, right? That's one of the big points that was in the book Shame of the Nation. That's one of the points that they make, is that the weakness of the American educational system, Jonathan Kazal wrote Shame of the Nation, is that it's very localized. And because of that, where you live determines the quality of education you get. Because I'm from a little town in Ohio, I got a very shitty education, where I watched a lot of movies, and I had a very, very shitty education. So But if you live in the suburbs, you will get a very, very good education. But it'll probably be very woke. And if you go to an expensive private school in the suburbs, it'll be very, very woke. But if you go to an evangelical Christian school, you're definitely not going to get a woke education, and that's a private school. So I remember in the area that I grew up in, there were 2 high schools that were private, and they were Christian, and they were very different from each other. One of them was a very conservative evangelical school, and the other was actually a very high-achieving Mennonite school. The Mennonite school and the evangelical Christian school, both of them were private schools, but they were like night and day, right? One had a curriculum that was very, very much, ideological. The other actually had a very high-performing academic record, but both of them kind of pushed, religion very much. But Mennonitism is a little bit different, right? It's a little bit different than mainstream evangelical stuff. And I remember, I ended up going to public school my entire education, but my parents did explore, these 2 private schools that were in my area. They did look at them, and they were very different from each other. And one was a very low quality education that was pushing evangelical Christianity, and the other was a very high quality education mixed in with very Mennonite theology. It's very interesting to look at all these things. But yeah, my daughter's private Christian school required girls to wear skirts on Friday. We switched to public school only Friday. I mean, a lot of Christian schools require girls to wear skirts all the time. They don't allow girls to wear pants, especially, like fundamental Baptist schools. I mean, if you go to Hammond Baptist Church, Hiles Anderson College, the high school they have there in Hammond, Indiana, in Chicagoland, the girls are all wearing skirts. I'll tell you that. They're not wearing pants. Girls wearing pants is considered to be a sin by the fundamental Baptists. In my area, there was always a religion school, then sort of a hippie school aside from the public schools. Very weird, a hippie school. When I was in Vermont, I saw that like one of the high schools had like this like ecological sustainability high school. And I'm like, what in the world is that? And then a lot of the public schools in Vermont are very, very hippie. But yeah, there's the hippie schools. I just not familiar with that. But I guess, if you go to California, you have like Buddhist communities, right? You have Eastern mystical religious communities, and, there you go. So yeah, these things do exist, and yeah. But yeah, I don't think you're correct. I think the elite public schools are very woke, but they do give better education. You're right about that. The education is much better, but they're still pretty woke. All right. TV shows you watched during childhood, how did it impact you? Well, until I was a certain age, my parents would only let me watch public television because they didn't want me to see commercials. They were very much afraid of like commercials and violence and stuff. So I watched a lot of public television when I was a kid. I don't know, maybe that's why I'm so bookish and so, I think about history a lot and stuff like that. Maybe that's what that is. I don't know. There's not much more I really want to say about that, to be honest. When I was riding back from DC with Noah and Peter and and some others, we ended up talking about Arthur for a very long time. It's like when you're driving back, and I was very tired, and yeah, we ended up talking about Arthur and DW and and all of that. I hadn't talked about TV. It's kind of interesting. When I was growing up, my mother was very, very much of the feeling that you should not talk about television because she felt that was not, it didn't show that you were an intelligent person, right? So we weren't supposed to talk about TV. She didn't like that. If we talked about television, she thought, that's not a good sign. Right. So, we were kind of trained to not talk about TV, especially not around other people, because my mother, she didn't want people to think her kids just watch TV all the time. I don't know. But yeah, I watched a lot of Arthur, watched various PBS television programs. You know, my mother was a librarian, and she would bring home VHS tapes every weekend, just random VHS tapes. I watched all kinds of random VHS tapes that my mother brought home. That just, you know, she would just bring them home, and so I watched all kinds of old movies and all kinds of stuff because it was just, you know, it was just, we didn't have cable growing up. We had regular television, which it was interesting because a lot of people at my school were surprised that I didn't have cable. They're like, how can you not have cable? And then when I told them that we got, you know, 7, 8 channels without cable, they were also shocked by that as well. But yeah, with a regular antenna, we got, you know, we got PBS, we got CBS, we got the local Fox affiliate, we got the local Warner Brothers station. You know, we got, I mean, you could get quite a bit with an antenna, and we watched a lot with our antenna television. A lot of television that we watched. So there we go. Yeah. So I don't know what to say, but there we go. Have you had a chance to look at the newly classified files? I have not yet had a chance to look at them, but I'm looking forward to seeing them. And I'm going to go through them, and hopefully we learned something from them. There was like a JFK drop from Donald Trump when he was president that didn't really give us much. But I'm hoping that this new drop that he's declassifying it all will really teach us something. That's what I'm really, really hoping. So I'm hoping that we learn a lot from these new drops that come out. That would be really, really great. So there we go. Oh, another question. Judge Lewis Kaplan, is Trump called adjudicated? I don't know the case. Let me Google. What is it? Stephen Donziger. I'm not familiar with this case. Oh, right. This is the guy who Chevron went after, right? Who was prosecuted because he was targeted by Chevron. That's gotten a lot of attention. Right. Where, you know, very much it appeared that Chevron went after this guy because he was opposing them. Right. That has gotten a lot of attention, and that would be interesting. You know, there's a lot of things that Donald Trump has done that don't fit the progressive or the right-wing playbook. There's a lot of causes. I mean, even this release of the RFK, JFK, and MLK files. I mean, those are all, you know, the idea that the government is responsible for the death of Martin Luther King or the death of JFK and RFK. That is very much a leftist feeling. You know, so, you know, we'll see. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. called himself a socialist in the final years of his life. Let's not forget. So, you know, I quoted Martin Luther King Jr. in my speech that I gave in DC, which should be online pretty soon. So there you go. Well, thank you all for sending the super chats. I will be back tomorrow night. I think I'm going to start trying to do these more regularly now that things have slowed down a little bit. Between now and the February workshop. If you'd like to come to our workshop in February in Minnesota, it's going to be good. It's going to be a good event. I hope you can join us. You know, you'll get to be with us, and I'm trying to slow down a little bit. We did an amazing thing this weekend, and amazing thing on Inauguration Day. Thank you to everyone who helped us pull off what we did. And so now I'm going to put on the closing music, and we're going to go from there. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.